Hi, welcome to The Magical Alternative. I'm your host, Faith McCann, also known as Shadow Witch, and we're coming to you right here on CVC Public Access in Bolton, Connecticut, and now on Roku. The show is not only about magic, it's about alternative concepts we encounter every day. And we want to give you a talk show that's unlike other talk shows out there. No politics, no hate, no meanness. We want to be edgy, current, informative, entertaining, and fun, and we hope that's what you want too. For our debut show tonight, we have such an exciting lineup. I can't wait to tell you about it. All the way from Ireland, she co-wrote The Witch's Bible, and she's going to be talking to us as our very first guest on our very first show, Miss Janet Farrar. So, very good. I'm so excited also to introduce you to the very funny, edgy, and timely comic, the Reverend Hampton. And I'm excited to introduce you to my co-host, Miss Laurel Lady.
Hello, everybody.
And she'll be doing a magical book review on the world-renowned magical author, the late Scott Cunningham. Very cool. And we have the exciting music of the band November Sound. Awesome. And wait, did I say witch? Oh my goodness, calm down before you run out of the room. And I have literally had at least one person this week run out of the room. Let me explain. Yes, I did say witch. If it makes you feel any better, Wiccan. Firstly, we are everywhere. We love nature. We get ridiculously excited when we see the moon. I cast the occasional spell or two. I have a cat or three. I don't believe in a devil, but I do believe in a God. Oh, don't think you know me. Yes, I hear you. It's the whole spell casting thing that kind of gets you hung up. Well, trust me, you have cast a spell or two. You have. They don't believe me. Yes, you have. If you've ever blown out a birthday candle after making a wish, well, it's one of the oldest known spells, human/witch kind, we have in history. Give credit to the ancient Greeks. People would bring little crescent moon-shaped cakes with tiny candles to the temple of Artemis and light the candle, make a wish to Artemis, blow out the candle, and eat the little cake. Now, this was before 356 BCE when the temple was destroyed. Back then, religion and magic were one and the same. Today, this practice is a little bit more secular, but still tasty. Now that we've established that most people have participated in an ancient spell casting ceremony, let's talk a little, just you and I, about that burning question you have. You know what it is. Am I a good witch or a bad witch? What people are really asking when they ask that is if I practice white magic or black magic. And people want a simple answer. Magic is not that simple. It's a tool. And you have to look at the person using it and their actions and behaviors. Are you a good person or a bad person? Let me explain it this way. Take this simple pen. This is actually my favorite pen. One could write a love song, a poem, even sacred texts have been written with a pen. Yet, you could write a painful, cruel, hurtful letter or a note, which could cause irreparable damage, and some would call that evil. Wars have been started with the stroke of a pen. Again, is the pen holy or evil? It's not, it's merely a tool. So this is just as in magic. In history, there are countless people or examples of people that have done miraculous things and they're deemed miracles. Other people throughout history have done miraculous things and they're called the evil witches or sorceresses. It all came down to one thing though. Others, the people looking at these miraculous things and determining if they are good or evil. Know that if you do not practice our ways, your knowledge of magical people most likely comes solely from fairy tales or animated or horror movies. You do not know us, and I want to change that. You have nothing to fear. We come in peace. And to answer your original question, am I a good witch or a bad witch? Well, I try to do good in all that I do, but at the end of the day, I guess you'll have to be the one to determine that. And you will. I just hope you get to know me a little bit before you decide. So on with our show. Well, later in our show, I'll be answering all of those questions you've had whenever you wondered about Groundhog Day. What is it all about? Up next is my first guest. She was a gopher for the music company that had the record labels for the Beatles, Elton John, the Bee Gees, and so many more in the late 1960s. She was a model in London and has been one of the magical world's most prolific authors since the 1970s and remains so to this day. She wrote The Witch's Bible with her late husband, Stuart Farrar. I introduce to you Miss Janet Farrar. Thank you very much. And tonight we have an amazing guest. Our first guest for the Magical Alternative is a friend of mine, a world-renowned author of the book, The Witch's Bible.
And here it is, the Palace Cat.
And a Palace Cat, yes. And she's a witch, a historian, and one of the most amazing people I've ever met, Miss Janet Farrar. So, yay! So I want to thank you very much for being on my show. So how have you been? How's everything in Ireland?
Cold. We're expecting snow.
Yeah.
But apart from that, and of course, unfortunately, COVID is on the rise yet again.
Unfortunately, yes, that's true. Well, it's so good to see you, and I hope you and Gavin are staying well. I wanted to talk to you, and again, thank you for being on my show. You are as I said to everyone, the famous author, as well as you and your late husband, Stuart Farrar, of The Witch's Bible, A Complete Witch's Handbook. This has been out for decades, and I've told so many people, if you do not have this on your bookshelf, you really should have it. It is an amazing book. But the book I came across that I'm really, really fascinated with was the book you did with a friend of yours, Elizabeth Guerra, along with you. It's called Rider on a Broomstick, and it's a little bit of the history of your late husband, and it also talks about your original journey into witchcraft and Wicca and how you got started and your origins in the East End of London. And I just found it so fascinating. And I was hoping you would be kind enough to talk to us a little bit about that time in your life and how it kind of propelled you deeper into the world of Wicca and witchcraft. You were working at the time, it said, for NEMS. That was what, North End Music Store or something like that?
Yes, I wasn't technically working for them as an employee.
Okay.
I was what was the equivalent of a gopher.
Oh,
you go for this and you go for that and you go for everything else. So I was actually working for a company called Page One Records, which was allied to their music company, Dick James Music, and therefore allied to NEMS Enterprises and, of course, to Apple. And Apple, my friend Jenny worked for the boutique. So almost every day you'd find me at the Apple boutique, and it was a wild time. When I say it was a time of sex and drugs and rock and roll, in London, that's not strictly true.
Okay.
Because there was an innocence about us back then. Innocence in the sense that, yes, people who had the money, people in show business, for example, they did take cocaine, they did take ecstasy, well, the equivalent of ecstasy, etc., pills mainly, and of course acid. But the majority of us, because we were still teenagers, we were horribly respectable. We didn't smoke, we didn't drink, we didn't do drugs. And a lot of us were still virgins.
Yeah.
So there was an innocence about it. In fact, it was a magical time, a very magical time. It was a world where we believed in love. We
Mm.
believed that the world should be a place of peace and love and harmony. And of course, we were flower children. We were the hippie generation.
Yeah.
And it was, it was a time when, as teenagers, we thought this would never end. This wonderful, magical world we lived in. I mean, so much so that the night of the Yellow Submarine, I went to the premiere of the film. And of course, we were all dressed for the occasion in wonderful yellow colours, etc.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
again, it was pure fantasy.
Mm.
And it was just so exciting. And it gave me a real insight into what it was like to be a rock star back then. Because I can tell you this, it was frightening.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
it made me realize what it must be like to be one of the Beatles or the Rolling Stones.
Mm.
Because we went to the cinema where it happened in a beautiful yellow Rolls Royce, an old Rolls Royce,
Wow.
one of the originals.
Oh.
And the Beatles wanted it, but we got there before them and we hired the Rolls Royce.
Oh.
And to travel through the streets of London with screaming girls being held back by the police is frightening. And you
That
can
must have been
imagine
horrible.
how terrifying it was, or, because I know they were used to it, but it was still terrifying for these 4 young lads who were the Beatles. Because these girls, I mean, if they had got their hands on any single one of them, I dread to think what it would have been. Psychological rape is what I would have called it.
Yeah. And you were in the Rolls Royce. I mean, you said in the book how a motorcycle in front of the car had broken down.
Oh, yeah. That was my fiance.
Okay, so they were
His bike stalled in front of everybody. And we all skidded to a halt. By this time, the girls, being held back by the police, realised an opportunity and surged forwards.
Oh.
And you could see behind us, Paul McCartney had an Hispano Sousa, and his car, the Hispano, had John Lennon and Yoko Ono, etc. in it. And you could see them going, oh my God, we're cooked. We are really cooked. Luckily, he got it going.
Oh.
And then when I saw him the next day, I said, darling, what happened? He said, it stalled. I know it bloody well stalled, you idiot.
Oh my goodness. Well, you made it out with your lives, thankfully.
Only just.
Only just. So you'd mentioned sometime after that, and anyone that wants to know more about this Stuart Farrar, Rider on a Broomstick, these stories you talk about, your insights into the individual members of the Beatles, I thought were really insightful. I thought it was just beautifully written, and I recommend anybody that wants to know more about that. But you mentioned a group, Black Widow, and how they had kind of come in. I don't know that they're still out there, but how did they influence your actually like breaking up with rock and roll? I mean,
technically, I wouldn't say it was their influence.
oh, okay.
I outgrew rock and roll. I'd found the craft. I'd found Alex Saunders at the time. By the way, I hasten to add to people out there, although he called himself King of the Witches, he wasn't my King of the Witches. He was just Alex Saunders, simple as that.
Yes.
He was a nice enough guy in some ways, and he was no bugger, excuse my language, in other ways. But Black Widow, at that time, I was working for Page One Records, and they had recorded this album, which included invocations to and I use this term lightly, demon Ashtaroth, who actually is only the goddess Astarte under another name.
Yes.
And therefore, they were getting into a situation they didn't know how to handle. And I took one look at this because in the middle of all of this invocation to basically the goddess Astarte, i.e. Ashtaroth, they're calling, come to the Sabbath, Satan's here, etc. And I thought, oh boy, kids messing. So I put them in contact with Alex Saunders. And that's how the stage show started, because they were doing a stage show. And to be honest, it got really cheesy and it got quite nasty, because you had a young Maxine Saunders, she was still in her late 20s at that stage, walking down a catwalk wearing nothing but a diaphanous see-through gown and a purple cloak, or a long blue cloak, as the goddess herself. And meanwhile, watching her on the edge of this catwalk is every lustful teenage boy in the whole of London.
Ooh.
We are talking nasty situation could arise there.
Yes.
And actually did, because at some stage, I think the goddess herself got a bit fed up with this. She knocked Maxine over backwards, and Maxine fell on top of a very large incense burner and burnt herself.
Oh.
It could have been very, very nasty indeed.
Yes.
And at the same time, the management of these theatres said enough is enough and cancelled the show, which was the best thing they could have bloody well done.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know what happened to Black Widow, but after that, they disappeared, basically.
And you decided no longer to work for or do the gopher job, and
I was fed up with the music industry because I'd worked there for so long, and I won't say people were my friends because you don't make friends just like that if you're a secretary, etc., like I was. But I met various people, and some of them were nice and some of them were not so nice. I mean, Elton John was lovely. I still adore that man because he was so sweet and so nice. And Bernie Taupin.
Yes, you mentioned him. You had long talks
Bernie.
with him.
You know, we sat on the roof and he played that song, your song, and he laughingly said, "Hey, it's your song," etc. You know, so I've always considered that my song.
That's one of my favorites. Yeah,
even though technically it's not, but you know, but Bernie was a sweetheart. But you know, I remember standing outside NEMS one day because they were both affiliated to each other, NEMS and Dick James Music, and standing on the pavement was this frightened little boy, and that's the only way to describe him, looking desperately for a taxi and looking very alone and very scared of London. Jimi Hendrix.
Really? Oh.
But you know, one of my favorite stories, and I think people are going to love this.
Oh, please.
When we'd started writing books, The Witch's God had just come out, and Atlantis Bookshop in London were having a book signing. And Stuart and I turned up, as we always did for book signings, and they always put on a reception, a little wine and, you know, biscuits and that sort of stuff. But on that morning, our publisher had wanted to contact Stuart about signing a new contract. So I said to Stuart, right, you go to the publisher and I'll stay here at the shop and help out. Well, as I'm helping out, a young man comes in with a portfolio of photos he'd taken. And you see one of those faces and you know this person, but you cannot put your finger on it. So he came in and he showed everyone his portfolio and people were admiring it. And he walked around the shop and then he saw The Witch's God. And he went, I really wanted to get a copy of that and it's being signed today. What time? And they said about midday. And, oh, I've got an appointment. I won't be able to make it. I really, really wanted to get a signed copy. So he said, well, Janet's here. She'll sign it for you. So I said, just no problem. So this darling man with these strange eyes came up to me and said, would you please? And I said, of course. Who do I make it out to? And he said, well, make it out to Fred. So I made it out to Fred. And when he left the shop, having given me a big kiss on my cheek, the girls were laughing. And I said, what's so funny? And they said, oh, Janet, you are a plunkard. You're an idiot. Why? Don't you realise who that was? No, David Bowie.
Really? Oh, my goodness.
But things happen in twos because that very same day after the book signing, Stuart took me to Soho because a lot of the film industry places were in Soho and he used to work in film. And he had a pub there that he would love to have lunch in. So we went to have lunch. And I went up to get Stuart his favourite drink, a whiskey. And I thought, I'll have one too. And as I was buying it, there was a lovely looking man beside me at the bar. He turned round and he knocked my glass of whiskey off the counter out of my hand. He was so apologetic. And he said, look, I'll replace it. He said, where are you sitting? I said, well, over there with my husband. And he said, okay, you sit down, I'll bring the drinks over. And I'm walking back thinking, no, it can't be. Oh, wow. And he comes up and he puts down 2 whiskies, not just singles, but doubles for Stuart and myself.
Oh.
Now you're going to love this. Poor Stuart was not up on music at all. And when he put it down, my jaw dropped 60 foot. And Stuart said, what's going on? I went, Stuart, that's Queen. And he went,
no.
That's not that Queen. I said, no, you don't understand. That's Freddie Mercury. It's Queen.
That's not the
Stuart,
Queen.
who the hell is Freddie Mercury?
That's awesome.
I got two in one day for the price of one.
Oh, that is wonderful. Oh, what a great story. That's beautiful. So you are a force where you're going to do what you want to do, what is important to you, regardless of how many, stars are exploding around you. I mean, you are your own star. And I think that is so admirable. And I've always looked up to you from the moment I've met you. So
The key to being a celebrity is if somebody puts you on a pedestal, jump off and run away.
every
Because
single
the
time.
best celebrities are people who don't see themselves as upper, I'm better than you are, etc.
Exactly.
I mean,
yeah.
I was destined, I think, for a very unusual life from the time I was a child, before I was even born.
I read that.
And the only reason I can say this is I grew up in the East End of London, and we did not come from a rich family. My mother died of cancer when I was 5.
I read that, yeah.
But when my mum was carrying me in her womb, she got the fright of her life one day. She'd gone out into our garden, and my grandfather, who lived there with us, was a wonderful gardener, and it was the most beautiful garden you could imagine. We had apple trees, and we had lilac, and we had flowers all year round. It was exquisitely lovely. And my mother used to go out there because she used to love to just wander in the garden when she was pregnant with me. But on this occasion, down the end of the garden were 2 very large, very, very old oak trees. And the story was that originally it had been part of a druidical oak grove. Now, my mother knew nothing about oak groves and druids or anything like that. But under one of the trees, she saw a strange man standing there. He was almost glowing white, and he was wearing what she said was like something made of check. It was the lateen tartan. He was a druid. And he had a golden sickle in his hand, and he pointed at my mother's uterus, pointed at the unborn child, and claimed it for his own. My mother had a complete meltdown, ran to my next door neighbour and said, "There's a strange man in the garden," etc. And old Kath next door, Kathy was the second cousin of Howard Carter, who discovered Tutankhamun. She looked calmly at my mother. She goes, "Oh, there's a druid. That's nothing to worry about." So, in a sense, and of course, being an Owen, I came from a druidical clan. We were amongst the druids who fought against the Roman on Holy Island in Wales. And so, it's in the bloodline, it's genetic. Yes. So he was saying, "Hey, one of us is here again," etc. Of course, my poor mother had no idea about it at all. So obviously somewhere out there was some ancient druid who's saying, "Hey, girl, you're back again."
That's wonderful.
Maybe I should have been a druid. I don't know, darling.
Well, I think you're following exactly the path you're meant to follow. And I think we all do. And I think you're an excellent example of that. And I am so excited that you were so kind to debut on my first show and be a guest on my first show. And I certainly hope that you will come back again. I would also love to talk to Gavin. I know he has his own story, and Eleanor Bone was an aunt of his, I believe. And she has her own, there's just so much history between the two of you. And I would absolutely love to have you both back again and again and again. So.
And one time we will talk about Doreen Valiente, Stuart Farrar,
yes, and
code breaking at Bletchley Park in the Second World War. And how the two of them knew exactly what was going on. And we are talking of the field of espionage.
Oh, that would be so exciting. Thank you so much. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. So everyone, thank you so much. This has been my guest, Janet Farrar. And again, if you want to know more about her exciting life, we have Stuart Farrar, Writer on a Broomstick, written by her friend Elizabeth Guerra and Janet Farrar, and also her most famous book, A Witch's Bible by Janet and Stuart Farrar. And there's so many more. You can just Google Google her name and find countless books that she has written over the years, and you keep writing, and she's now writing with her husband Gavin Bone, and they're just amazing. So thank you so much, lady, for coming on to my show. I am blessed to know you and to have you as my guest. And your palace cat. And your palace cat. Thank you so much. You have a blessed day, and I thank you again. Have a great one. Thank you.
Love you, sweetie.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye, sweetheart.
Bye.
And welcome back. And thank you. The Sound of November sound. They sound amazing. Awesome. So great. And I'd like to introduce you to my next act, an amazing comedian, local, super funny. Everyone, the Reverend J.J. Hampton. Yeah.
So wicked fantabulous, you know. And don't adjust your screen, swear to God. Yes, I am that ugly. They used to keep me around at the bar and drink for free. Because when I look good, I was a shut-off notice. They had to go home. I also, during the pandemic, I tried to get a job in one of those haunted graveyards. And apparently they told me I had too much experience. Translation, I guess I was too ugly and they didn't want to scare the children that much. Anyways, I am the Reverend J.J. Hampton, the Reverend Reefer for the Church of Higher Living in Bunging Day Saints. I have also came up with the word cannabis, which changed 420 to a proper holiday name. Cannabis Christmas. So on the 12th hour of cannabis, my true love gave to me 12 pop brownies, 11 grams of hash, 10 dab hits, 9 gummy bears, 8 chocolate bars, 7 grams of chem dog, 6 bungs of bubbling, 5 golden nugs, 4 pot cookies, 3 vapor cartridges, 2 packs of zigzags, and an ounce of some really good kush. Thank you. You know, with every good holiday, you have different things, you know. But my favorite, of course, is the prayer. And yes, there is a prayer for it. Mother God, Mary Jane, I'd like to thank thee for this bounty of buds that should break up and roll bowl of bong all night long. And in Mary Jane's name, I pray every day to the Mother, Daughter, Holy Smoke. Amen.
All right. All right.
Has anybody been to the Taste of Hartford? There are a bunch of fibbers there. I went to the first booth. And I said, how much? He goes, what would you like, a long neck? I said, I didn't know they came in that. I said, yeah, I thought you guys were offering hookers. How much?
Oh.
Another one, Jamaican Festival. I went there and I was hungry as hell, and it was in Bushnell Park. So I hobbled all the way to the other side because I'm following the smoke. And when I got there, it was just a bunch of people smoking. Come to find out, the food was on the other side of the park. I was like, damn. That ain't right, man. Yeah. Thinking about coming out with a couple new companies. One thing, since cannabis is recreational and legal now, I do believe there should be a place where people can go and get a nice joint with a cup of coffee. I'll call it J.J. Hampton's Perkin Pot. Come for the gold, but stay for the bold. Huh? Or cannabis. You go around to different dispensaries, and then at the end of the day, you stop at a concert. Sounds good enough for me, don't you? Does anybody else have allergies? Like really, really super bad allergies? Yeah. And I used to drink until 5/5 of 2005. I actually quit drinking. So,
good, yeah.
You know what? I'm sober off alcohol to this day, but I smoke enough reefer to make Willie Nelson and Snoop Dogg pass out. Anyways, have you ever gone like to a bar and drank a whole bunch of, I don't know, pitcher beer and had deviled eggs and had like the worst craps you ever had in your life? I'm talking the first morning one, and you can't breathe through your nose, and then you go and then you do it. You blow your nose. Like, oh my freaking God, what the hell is that, man? That came out of me. Everywhere I go, I'm always told, wow, man, you smell like reefer. I said, that's cool, man. That's my new cologne. I said, it's not an OD toilet, it's an OD joint hit. La Cush. Also thinking of coming out with a movie called, instead of Willy Wonka, which I found they came out with a new one, but mine's a little different, kind of the alternative spectrum, is J.J. Hampton and the Medical Marijuana Factory. Oh. Take a toke of my buds and you'll feel this pure exhilaration as we toke it across the entire nation. And if you take a toke of my buds, you are surely going to feel it. Hopefully you toke it deeply and hopefully you get as high as me. Instead of Oompa Loompas, you got Puffy Wuffies. Puffy Wuffy Wuffity-doo. Here comes a fat joint coming for you. Puffy Wuffy Wuffity-dee. Why don't you smoke that fat joint with me? What do you do when that joint's in front of you? Do you go ahead and toke it one or two? Or do you just let it go right by? Oh, why? Oh, why? Why not toke and then get high? Anybody else find it funny they open up deer hunting season around Christmas time? You know, some idiots in Georgia sitting there with a Pabst Blue Ribbon and his AR-15 at about December 24th at 10 p.m. going, come on, Santa Claus. No. Come on down. I got 9 spaces on my wall just for you. You have deer jerky next year. 70% of medical marijuana patients are senior citizens. That puts a whole new twist on grandma's in the kitchen baking, don't it? I'll leave you with one last song. All these kids like rap nowadays. I'm 49 years old. I really don't understand it, but I'll tell you a little bit of story about my life. All right. Well, east of Hartford, born and raised in the projects where I spent most of my days, chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool, and smoking a fat joint outside of the school when a couple of guys that lived in my neighborhood told me that they had something really good. I said, go ahead and put a dime bag right there. I went home and I smoked it. I said, oh, hell yeah. I pulled up to the store about 40 minutes later because I had the freaking munchies. I said, see you later. I guess I finally made it there. High off my derriere. And I do believe that is my time, I think.
Thank you very much, JJ.
My name is the Reverend JJ Hampton. You can catch me on YouTube at the Reverend JJ, basically anything.
Thank you very much. Very good. Thank you so much,
Faith.
Thank you for coming.
I guess you got to have a little faith, huh?
That's it. Awesome. You are awesome. Thank you so much. Excellent. So how long have you been playing together? Like before you were married?
We started in 2014 as a family band.
Okay.
And our son was only, well, he would go with a year, so he was 14 when we started.
Okay.
We've been doing this 10 years. Just playing out at vineyards and different things. And we've written how many albums now? Well, my husband writes all of our original music.
Oh,
the 3 songs we just did, and his lyrics, music, everything.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Now, did you both like music before you met, or?
Yes, so Bill and I actually met doing a show. He was in the pit playing, and I was up on stage singing. We both went to Hart School of Music, so
okay.
We've always done music, and
a lot of good people come from that school. Yeah, very cool. And now, did you learn from your parents, or did they train you, or did you go to school? Or?
No, I didn't. I studied drum set for most of my life.
Oh, nice.
I didn't take after. I started on saxophone.
Oh, nice.
And I also sang too, but I stopped saxophone and I took up drums.
Wonderful.
And
you sound great. This is so cool, and I love the fact. I mean, you sound amazing, and the family band thing. I love that. I think that's so great. So thank you so much for being here. And November Sound, everyone. Give it up. This is awesome. You sound amazing. Thank you so much.
Stop swinging. It's a strange way to make small talk, I admit. Let's go outside for a walk, he says, so we can talk for a bit. He says, I'm a rusted angel with your faded plastic lights. You're so a butterfly and you used to glow just right. Being painted good and all my life to dream black and white.
Thank you, everyone. November Sound. This is awesome. And welcome back. And that was the awesome sound of November Sound. And now I want to introduce you to my cohort. I like that. My co-host and cohort, Miss Laurel Lady Hawk. She is going to be doing an awesome book review on the late magical author Scott Cunningham. So give it up for Miss Laurel Lady Hawk. Yeah. Take it away.
Scott Cunningham, a magical pioneer who opened Wicca to the world. Scott Cunningham was born June 27, 1956, in Royal Oak, Michigan. His parents, author Chester Chet Cunningham, and his wife, Rose, moved Scott, his older brother, and his younger sister, Christine, to San Diego when Scott was 4 years of age. He started his magical path when he was really young because his grandmother, who practiced magical folklore, is what they kind of called it, used herbs to make cures and charms. During his high school years, he started studying with witchcraft with a friend, but it wasn't until his college years when he roomed with magical author Donald Michael Craig and socialized with author Raymond Buckland. That's where he really started to practice. In college, Scott took creative writing, but after 2 years, he quit because he was published more than his professors were. So he decided to quit and just, become a writer. He started frequenting a shop in San Diego called Yield Enchantment Shop, where he met and took workshops under another famous author, Reverend. He started learning the Iridian tradition under Raven, in which he ended up getting initiated for a first-degree Wiccan. But he decided after 2 years of practice with that tradition to start out on his own. Although he left the old enchantment shop, he still stayed friends with Raven until he died in 1993. In the 1970s and 80s, the Wiccan tradition was focused on a goddess, God, marriage, and being an openly gay man. Scott often felt excluded because of his sexuality. He opened up the Wiccan movement into the queer community. In fact, this was a basis for more of the queer-focused movements in the following years. Scott wanted to bring Wicca out into the open so everybody could practice, because up until then, it was a secret society. And at the time, witchcraft was a very closed religion. You had to be accepted into a coven, or you had to be born into a witch family. Other magical practitioners at this time would say that Scott's work was more neo-Wiccan tradition because it was so different from the regular type of Wiccan practices. Scott's work opened up witchcraft for solitary practitioners who would never have been able to study otherwise. Scott Cunningham is credited for removing the need to be initiated into a tradition. In 1982, Scott published his first book, Magical Herbalism, which is this right here. But his most famous book, which was Wicca, A Guide for the Solitary Practitioner, which, as of the last time I read, he had more than 800,000 copies sold. Since that time, he had written 22 books on witchcraft. In 1988, this is the book that was published, and it brought witchcraft into the open for anybody to read. Scott took his knowledge of natural magic and he wrote it in a way for anybody to understand it. And you can also trust whatever Scott has written. When he roomed with Donald Michael Craig, Donald Michael Craig often said that Scott Cunningham was afraid that someone could get hurt if he didn't research his words, if he didn't try all his spells on his own. He was just so afraid that he was going to have somebody get hurt. So he would try all of his recipes. My favorite books, of course, are their encyclopedias of Crystal Gem and Metal Magic and the Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs. I use these books at all time. I use it on a daily basis, whether I'm doing a spell or if I'm doing my jewelry making. He has taken the guesswork out of any of the information that you would need to make any spell effective. Incense, Oils, and Brews is the best book to have. This is what is referred to as a magical cookbook. It is the best book to use for substitutions. Say you're doing a spell, but you don't have one of the ingredients. If you go to the back of the book, it has substitutions. So say you want to do a spell for love. All these different herbs. You can either use the herbs or the oils. You don't have to have just rose petals. So this is another great book that he had published. In 1983, Scott was diagnosed with lymphoma, which he successfully overcame. But in 1990, during a speaking tour in Massachusetts, he was diagnosed with AIDS-related cryptococcal meningitis. The next few years, he suffered several infections and eventually died in March of 1993 at the age of 36. The magical community lost an incredible author and teacher, and at such a young age, but his work will bring new magical practitioners into the world for years to come. In honor of you, Scott, I light this candle and speak the words that you wrote. What no human ear could hear, you heard. What no human eye could see, you saw. What no human heart could bear, you transformed. What no human hand could do, you did. What no human power could change, you changed. Accept this humble token of thanks from a solitary Wiccan who has spoken and who has been heard. So mote it be.
Very good. Thank you so much. That was awesome. So
Thank you.
And thank you, Miss Laurel. And again, the sounds of November Sounds, who you can find on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, and on their website of novembersound.com. And thank you so much for coming to my show, or our show, No Magical Alternative. And I'm going to finish up by talking about Groundhog Day, because this is going to be shown in February. What is it all about? Seriously, we take a fuzzy, hibernating, long-toothed beast out of the ground and expect it to foretell the timing of spring. Well, I'll tell you what it's really all about. Groundhog Day. Or here in southern New England, we call them woodchucks. You know, how much wood can a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? That's actually an old New England riddle. If you are born around here, they tell you the answer. You know, like, answer me this riddle 3. But if you're from other parts of the world, we can't tell you. It's kind of like a weird New England sorority secret. But Groundhog Day, or Woodchuck Day, the most useless, unnecessary, weirdest, and annoying for the groundhog holiday since Talk Like Shakespeare Day, at least here in the United States. I mean, I can understand talking like Shakespeare or the Bard in Great Britain, okay, where they would celebrate his birthday. But here in the United States, seriously, we don't have a Talk Like George Washington Day or Talk Like Abraham Lincoln Day 7 years ago. Anyway. So on February 2nd, we take a small, furry, long-toothed beast that we have captured and placed in captivity against their will, I might add. And on that fateful day, we take it out, hand it to a mayor of a small or a large town. They take it outdoors, hold it up to the sky, and see if it sees its shadow. A few important points to note out. The original celebration was brought here to the New World by the German Dutch, who actually used a badger, and that's kind of important. They would go out of doors while hunting in the woods around February 2nd, which was called Candlemas. That was a Christian holiday that was laid over the ancient pagan holiday of Imbolc. And they would go looking as they were hunting for a badger that might have come out running around looking for food. Interestingly now, badgers do not hibernate, but they do sleep up to 29 hours at a time, and then they come out looking for food. So why? If it is a sunny day, hence the shadow, which portends another 4 to 6 weeks of winter, would that mean a longer winter? Well, it's most likely a concept called sympathetic magic. And if a dark shadow is cast, then metaphorically it means a darkness and cold will continue to cover the earth. And that's where we believe the concept comes from. But by taking the woodchuck, groundhog, out of its natural environment, keeping it in a cage, the forecasting is wildly inaccurate. A better choice would be to wait. Our groundhogs or woodchucks are true hibernators, which means on a cold, snowy winter, they will go into true hibernation on November 1st and come out on May 1st, a full 6 months later. So if you have woodchucks in your yard, as I do, if you keep a close lookout, and you see one come out in the early or middle part of April, you can absolutely bet it's going to be in early spring and summer. You simply can't force nature. You must be patient and watch for the signs, and nature will give it to you. So this has been our show, The Magical Alternative. I'm Faith McCann, and I hope you've had fun with us tonight. And if you take anything away, it's that witches are real, we are human, and we're real people that simply see magic in everything, and we never outgrow it. Let me finish by saying what will be our closing line for the show, a quote by the great John Lennon. "A dream you dream alone is only a dream. A dream you dream together is reality." So I want to thank my co-host, Miss Laurel Ladyhawk, my amazing guests, Miss Janet Farrar, the Reverend J.J. Hampton, the incredible music of November Sound, the magical alternative crew, and everyone at CVC Public, Bolton Public Access TV, and Roku. Thank you very much. And that's it, guys. All right. Thank you.
Think about the worst, forget about the best. We wonder what comes first. Is it love or happiness? I can be a perfect failure, make the worst of opportunity. Talk about your concrete bridges, even they can burn, you see. Take a sip of your liquid karma, just sip 2 drops for me, 'cause I fall down, just not gracefully.